Hong Kong is winning the meme wars. They've had a victory. Hong Kong's leader, Carrie to withdraw extradition bill that ignited the protests. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, bringing you the obvious. And today, on the New York Times. So I've been covering the protests happening in Hong Kong for a while now. Long story short, Hong Kong is being tyrannized by China, who is trying to make it so that anyone who's convicted of a crime in Hong Kong can be extradited to China to be prosecuted. In other words, they will be unfairly tried. China's very corrupt. Hong Kong is a more autonomous region. They have more rights. They have fairer trials. If they were able to just take anyone from Hong Kong and send them to China, they'd be screwed. They'd never have a fair trial. They would be destroyed. That is one of the reasons that Hong Kong has decided to protest. And they've been doing so by taking up memes, symbols of freedom, like Pepe the Frog. We've seen many of those memes and many signs. And they are fighting for constitutional rights, fighting for a democratic republic, fighting and protesting against tyranny. Now, before we look further into this story, monetization on my channel has been completely disabled. As such, I have no ads. You can help me by joining me on Patreon or Subscribestar, and sharing videos you enjoy or think are important on social media also helps. Now, let's see here. The government will formally withdraw the bill, Hong Kong leader says. Now, it's important to note that many people think this is too little too late and is only one of the demands that Hong Kong has for China. Time will tell whether this ends in massacre or victory. But one thing is for sure, Hong Kong is winning the meme wars. So this article is by Austin Ramsey and Alien Yu. Hong Kong. Carrie Hong Kong's chief executive, said Wednesday the government would withdraw a contentious extradition bill that ignited months of protests in the city, moving to quell the worst political crisis since the former British colony returned to Chinese control 22 years ago. The move responds to a major demand of the protesters, who feared China would exploit the measure to extradite suspects for prosecution in China's opaque judicial system. In simple words, you go to China, you're screwed. No fair trial. So what is unclear is whether this is going to end the violence. Probably not, because it's only one grievance, not to mention all the people injured and imprisoned by the police. It's a big issue. And this too could just be not even a concession, it could just be a trick. If you read Sun Tzu's Art of War, I still have to finish reading it myself, but it's essentially all about trickery, or strategy as many call it. So this is interesting because just the day before, China's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office had signaled an uncompromising stance toward the protests. Yang Gang said, "There will be no middle ground, no hesitance, and no dithering when it comes to stopping the violence and controlling riots in Hong Kong." Yeah, so basically it's a police state right now. I don't blame them for protesting, and I also have to side with the protesters. I know just how corrupt and decrepit China really is. It's not a good place. Okay, people being eaten alive by elevators, you get run over and then they run you over again to make sure you're dead because it's cheaper to pay the fine for killing someone than to pay for someone's medical insurance. Oh yeah, that happens. That's the kind of place China is. I've seen so many videos. It's disgusting. It really is. Like, I cannot downplay how sad of a society China really is. I saw a video of a child who was injured, run over by a car, probably dying, and no one stopped to help. No one cared. They just walked past him. Just another day in China. According to Jean-Pierre Cabestan, a professor at Hong Kong Baptist University, the aim, he said, was to calm down the movement's moderates and weaken and isolate the radicals. Maybe it is a good calculation on the part of Beijing, he added, but it may also fail. And I really don't think that people are just gonna take this. They're not just gonna, oh, okay, you took away the concession bill. They're not gonna be satisfied. You need to give a little bit more. You don't have to give into every demand, but I really doubt that at this point it's gonna stop. It's not like China's any less corrupt. So the state-run Chinese media gave her withdrawal of the extradition bill relatively brief, muted coverage. Absent was any of the fiery commentary that has dominated mainland Chinese reporting of Hong Kong's turmoil, suggesting that Communist Party officials may still be working out a reaction designed to counter accusations of retreat. See what I mean? The media is run by the state. It's all corrupt. You know, they've been lying to mainland China that Hong Kong is just having violent protests for no reason whatsoever. It's not like you want to violate their rights. Oh wait, China doesn't have any rights. So many people are suspicious of her, even though it's withdrawn. They don't believe her, and I don't blame them, because again, this could just be an act of trickery that will lead to disaster. But it is a good first step. So Michael Teen, a moderate pro-Beijing lawmaker, said withdrawal alone may have been enough to calm the protests in mid-June. But since then, with the accumulation of so much resentment, so many accusations, and so many disputes, the establishment of an independent inquiry is 100% necessary, Mr. Tan said. At least some of the hardline pro-Beijing camp in Hong Kong expressed skepticism on Wednesday evening about Mr. Lam's overture, seeing it was not a clever gambit to ease pressure, but rather as a sign of political weakness that would only encourage further protests. Interesting. Claudia Mo, a pro-democracy lawmaker, described Ms. Lam's announcement as political performance. That it took her 3 months to formally use the word withdrawal is too little too late. Mr. Mo told reporters, a big mistake has been made. Oh boy. So it would seem that the meme wars are just beginning. The summer has seen peaceful marches involving hundreds of thousands of people, as well as street protests by smaller groups who have become increasingly violent in recent weeks. Again, we don't know how many of that is legitimate protesters or government plants sent by China. They do in fact send false flags all the time. Throwing bricks and firebombs at police. More than 1,100 people have been arrested since early June. The police, who have used batons, rubber bullets, and tear gas against protesters, have faced allegations of excessive force, yes. There was a Chinese woman who became famous because they shot out her eye, and this started the Pepe wave, and there was a Pepe picture. Ow. The police shot out my eye. So, withdrawal of the extradition bill was the initial demand of the protesters and the rallying cry when, by organizers' estimates, more than 1 million people marched on June 9th, and nearly 2 million marched a week later. More than 1 in every 4 in Hong Kong. I don't need to tell you how insane a number that is. That is 1 in 4 people in the entire place? That is insane. Here's a picture. The concession might pacify a small sector of the population, but it will not have any impact on whether the waves of protests would subside, he added. So on LIHKG, an online forum popular with protesters, several posts on Wednesday repeated long-standing calls to not compromise until all demands are met. Now, I disagree on that. I think they need to prioritize their demands, and once they get them, call it victory. Because China, I really don't think China's even going to give an inch over what they have. So, of course, the Chinese media has called protesters traitors and terrorists and horrible people. They're trying to make everyone seem terrible. But it's not true. These people are fighting for freedom. That is what it's all about. The Chinese government was initially silent on this summer's protests, then began to condemn them in increasing stringent tones, warning that the military could be called in. Images of Chinese police officers and paramilitary troops conducting anti-riot drills in Shenzhen, a mainland city near Hong Kong, were given regular coverage by state media outlets. On Friday, the police in Hong Kong arrested several prominent activists and 3 pro-democracy lawmakers as a crackdown on the opposition intensified. So let's take a quick look at some comments. Riley says, "We have 5 demands. This is only one of them. We have lost 7 lives, so 7 people have died. More than 1,000 protesters were arrested. Hong Kong has basically been turned into a police state. This is nothing close to victory." So Peter Filardo says, an amazing victory. Now the demonstrators have a difficult decision, namely whether to continue to further pursue their demands for democratic elections and other measures that will mean true democracy for Hong Kong. Again, democracy does not mean freedom. What they're talking about are republics. I think the nonviolent protest is the best tactic, and I agree. Given China's position as a great and growing but totalitarian regime, I think it is important that people and nations of goodwill support the demonstrators with words and perhaps sanctions. CP says, the incredible brave people of Hong Kong have just proven that change is possible, even under the most dire and repressive of circumstances. May they serve as a beacon of hope for freedom fighters around the world, not least in the United States. So here they list the 5 demands. Here we go. Number 1, the complete withdrawal of the proposed extradition bill, to which they've succeeded. Number 2, the government to withdraw the use of the word riot in relation to protests. 3, the unconditional release of arrested protesters and charges against them dropped. And 4, an independent inquiry into police behavior. 5, implementation of genuine universal suffrage. So the first grievance has been met. The rest should be met as well. Anyone that claims to support human rights and self-determination should support the Hong Kongers' demands. Now, the Hong Honklers, as I may call them now, need to prioritize. 1 was important, 5 is important, and I would say 3 is important. If they can get these 3, I would compromise on that. Withdrawal of the extradition bill, which they have, release of protesters with charges stopped, I agree with, and genuine universal suffrage. Agreed. I would say those need to be their top 3 priorities, and if they can get those, they need to call it a day. The rest would be nice, But honestly, I don't expect much from China. But you know what, my friends? That's pretty much the story. Hong Kong just had its first major victory. Hong Kong may be winning the meme wars, but that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about Hong Kong? What do you think about the extradition bill? And where do you think China's headed? Be sure to let me know. Now, as always, you can join me on Patreon or Subscribestar for as low as $1. Doing so will give you access to Fight Club, a private Discord server. Be sure to check out my affiliate links, as well as follow me on social media. Lastly, sharing videos you enjoy or think are important also help. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.